It's now time for our major stories in detail. And international regional news, of course. At the 6th IMF High-Level Caribbean Forum, it was revealed that the managing director of the International Monetary Fund is bemused by a lack of growth in the region, despite policy efforts to correct that trend. CVM Live's Joel Croskill reports.
Under the theme Unleashing Growth and Strengthening Resilience in the Caribbean, the 6th IMF High-Level Caribbean Forum was hosted by Jamaica, and in attendance was International Monetary Fund IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde, who admitted to being puzzled as to why the region isn't growing at a faster rate.
Unfortunately, economic growth in the Caribbean has been low for several decades. And this has led to rising social and economic challenges, including poverty, inequality, unemployment and crime. And while some authorities, actually many in the region, have made the effort in terms of macroeconomic stability, in terms of fiscal efforts, yet growth is somehow resisting those efforts. And it's actually a bit of a puzzle as to why that is.
The resistance to growth in the region was catalogued by a series of issues which face the Caribbean.
Clearly, the external shocks that we have seen, such as the natural disasters and loss of international trade preferences, as well as the impact on the agriculture, which is still an important source of growth. At the same time, the Caribbeans have not been able to fully insulate themselves from such shocks because of large macroeconomic imbalances. Growth has also been affected by structural impediments, and a few come to mind. The high cost of electricity, limited access to credit for both households and small and medium-sized enterprises, high rates of violent crime, and a persistent outflow of highly skilled workers, the well-known brain drain.
Crime and youth unemployment, according to the IMF Managing Director, also plays a role in the lagging growth prospects of nations including Jamaica.
Crime in the Caribbean costs nearly 4% of GDP per year, which is more than in most Latin American countries. So we need to create a virtuous as opposed to a vicious circle, where strong growth would reduce high unemployment, and particularly youth unemployment and crime, which in turn would contribute to boosting productivity and growth and improve this business-friendly environment without which investors are reluctant to invest.
Fiscal policy and political cycles were cited as another example of potential growth impediment to the region, as well as stability and growth trade-offs in the financial sector. Joel Croskill, CVM Live.
So although the managing director of the International Monetary Fund expressed puzzlement at the stymied growth of the region's economies, Prime Minister Andrew Holness articulated confidence that his government's projected goals of achieving 5% growth in 3 years, can still be achieved.
As Caribbean countries, we're all faced with the challenge of growth. We in Jamaica, we have been very ambitious. We have said that we intend to achieve 5% growth in 4 years. That was last year, so it's 5% growth in 3 years. And, you know, people have said it's an overly ambitious target, but I have never been known to do anything that is unambitious. And I'm strongly of the view that we will achieve the growth targets set. But we're also very cognizant of the significant challenges that the Jamaican economy faces, but these challenges are not unique. These are features of Caribbean economies.
And we want to apologize for the quality of the video where the audio seems to have been out of sync. But a return to a growth trend in the economy was revealed yesterday as the Planning Institute of Jamaica detailed its review of the economic performance for July to September 2017. As Joel Croskill reports, this was driven mainly by growth in the hotels and restaurants, manufacturing, and electricity and water supply sectors.
The Jamaican economy has returned to growth following fears of a recession. The information was provided by Dr. Wayne Henry, Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ.
Today, we are reporting that our estimate for real GDP growth for the July to September 2017 quarter is 0.9%, relative to the corresponding quarter of the previous year. This follows on a real GDP contraction of 0.1% recorded in the previous quarter, associated with a negative impact of the flood rains during March to May 2017.
The PIOJ head confirmed that Jamaica was not suffering from a recession, according to the classical description of such.
The Jamaican economy is not in a recession. In economics, a recession is defined as a business cycle contraction and represents a general slowdown in economic activity. Macroeconomic indicators such as GDP, gross domestic product, investment spending, capacity utilization, household income, business profits, and inflation fall, while bankruptcies and the unemployment rate rises. However, as a rule of thumb, albeit incomplete, recessions are generally defined as 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth.
Dr. Henry spoke of Jamaica's short-term economic outlook, October to December 2017.
The short-term prospects for the Jamaican economy are positive. Based on a stable macroeconomic environment, evidenced by modest inflation and stability in the real exchange rate, the anticipated strengthening of output in all industries, driven by increased output of the mining and quarrying industry associated with the resumption of production and export of alumina by the Alpart refinery, expected recovery in the agriculture industry, reflecting increased production in the other agriculture crop group, continued strengthening in the hotels and restaurants industry, facilitated by increased room stock. The industry will also benefit from the diversion away from hurricane-affected regional destinations during the month of October.
Joel Crosskill, CVM Live.
The Office of the National Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons is set to submit its first report to Parliament this month. Brian Walker discussed some preliminary finding with the National Rapporteur, Dan Gordon-Harrison.
The Office of the National Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons is tasked with monitoring the government's response to the crime. National Rapporteur Dan Gordon-Harrison says some government stakeholders need to have a clearer understanding of their role in the fight against the crime.
There are areas that we could improve in, even though the government as a whole has recognized the importance with which the issue must be treated. You still have some areas of government who do have a role to play in looking at the anti-human trafficking responses that they are responsible for, where they don't recognize and own that particular role, but really believe that somebody else who has a particular designation ought to treat with it. So there is the need for dialogue.
Human trafficking is a movement of people using force, fraud, or coercion in a push to exploit them. The country has had 4 human trafficking convictions. According to Gordon-Harrison, there are citizens who are unaware that human trafficking is a reality in Jamaica.
We're seeing that awareness is increasing, but it is pocketed, because what we find is when you speak to Jamaicans throughout all strata of society, from the most sophisticated to the most modest, there is still a kind of thinking that human trafficking is something that happens elsewhere but not in Jamaica. Some persons have heard the term and they think it has to do with it's something that's akin to drug trafficking.
The office has been gauging the pulse on the ground, and the report will be submitted to Parliament this month.
We have conducted a number of interviews with members of the TIP unit, or the vice trafficking vice squad in the Jamaica Constabulary Force, whereby we assess the particular communities or entities that they may target to do raids on. We also accompany them when some of these raids are being conducted, and we are a part of the debriefing sessions as well.
I'm Brian Walker for CVM Live.
And we have more on the CVM Live exclusive. Jamaican-born American politician and Democratic representative for Rhode Island, Marcia Ranglin Vassell, says she has no ambitions of becoming a congresswoman, even as she suggests ways in which the government can help tackle crime in Jamaica. CVM's Nika Lewis has our follow-up.
I'll be introducing the bill next when we go back, looking at the trauma that children experience who live in constant gun violence and what are their outcomes and what do we need to do, in terms of legislation to affect that.
As the elected Democratic representative of District 5, Rhode Island, Ranglin Vassell has supported a number of controversial bills in the House, among them a push to raise the minimum wage from just over $9.60 to $15 per hour, as well as revisiting gun control laws in the United States.
And when I leave here this evening, I'm doing an initiative right now, and I think it will be something that the legislatures in Jamaica could take a look at. Yes. Is we are trying to end gun violence and joblessness, because the root of gun violence here in Jamaica, I know because I've lived there. The root is in poverty, structural poverty, where people are losing hope. Not just here, but they're losing hope there. So I think if we can address the issue of poverty in Jamaica, we can address it there.
But despite her political rise, she says she has no ambition of becoming the next congresswoman at this time.
My plans are to work as hard as I can for the 15,000 people, voters, residents that's in my district here in Rhode Island. That's really what my goal is right now. And, during the days I go and I teach high school students, and those are the things that I feel passionately about, and raising my own family. But other than that, I like to stay in the moment.
Nika Lewis, CVM Live.
It's now time for our latest installment in our probe series, where Wayne Walker seeks answers to the question, is our Sprint factory closed?
The inspiration behind the theme to CVM Probe's Sprint Factory Close came about after this man brought about an end to his illustrious career at the World Championships in London this past summer. Tonight we bring him into the spotlight as we continue the search for the answer. Is the Sprint Factory closed? Here's part 4. So all week long, we have been seeking the answer to our probe's theme question, is the Sprint Factory closed? And after 3 parts, we have heard differing views from some of the top athletics officials. In the main, they believe the Sprint Factory is still very much open for business. Tonight, we talk to the man who actually sparked that debate, the greatest sprinter the world has ever seen, Usain Bolt. And the very same question was put to him, is the Sprint Factory closed? A sharp and Bolt-esque response from the Lightning himself.
Jamaica is just spoiled, I think, and the world is just spoiled. As time goes by, you have to always rebuild sometime, you know what I mean? It's not going to always be smooth sailing. So we've been winning, yes, we've been doing good. But right now, I guess a few of us are leaving. Johan was injured, so he has to step up. And there's a lot of younger people, and we still have everybody, Shelly telling me she's coming back. So there's the sprinters and the young people, so I have no doubt that next year we're going to the Commonwealth. Next year, half year, well, but the year after that, we'll have youngsters stepping up and we'll have other people stepping up again.
But like the previous responders, Bolt, even though agreeing that enough talent is abound to keep the Sprint Factory open, at the very least ajar, Bolt says the new generation must want it if they are going to succeed.
There's so much talent in Jamaica, so it's just about if they want to be great. I've said that I've seen it many times, that athletes come and then when they get to the professional level, they kind of drop out because they don't want to put in the work. So it's all about the level of work that people put in and how badly they want to be a champion.
In addition to the theme of our probe, another regularly asked question, did Jamaica capitalize on the dominant Bolt years, and who better to answer that question?
I don't think so. I personally don't think so. There's many other things that could be done, you understand, that even people see me around the world and wish that Jamaica promote more, but I promote myself, sir.
Tomorrow, in our final piece, we will hear the recommendations from the key players as to how they think Jamaica can make the transition from the outgoing stars to the incoming ones to at the very least keep the Sprint Factory open. For CVM Probes, I'm Wayne Walker.
It's now time for our regional and international news with Nicoy Wilson.
Now for news in the region. St. Lucia's National Security Minister says he is willing to give consideration to assigning a special judge to oversee sexual assault cases in a bid to clear the backlog in the criminal justice system. More in this report from HTS St. Lucia.
News of the hunt for a teenage male in connection with the attempted rape of a 52-year-old woman in Soufrière has once again stoked debate about the investigation, arrests, prosecution and conviction of perpetrators in sexual assault cases. According to online reports, the latest alleged incident reportedly took place around 3:20 a.m. near the Roman Catholic Church in Soufrière. National Security Minister Senator Humelgild Francis, when questioned by reporters, reveals that he is amenable to the idea of a special judge or magistrate presiding over sexual cases to ensure due process.
We need to realize that we need to curb it. Then we can have a special magistrates or judges deal with it. It not necessarily mean a different court, but the magistrates and judges will be aligned to do these matters specifically.
Apart from eyewitness testimony, forensic science is vital in landing a conviction in the courts. The forensic lab located at Tapio, which was first opened in 2009, was intended to greatly enhance the investigation of crimes and reduce the backlog of unresolved cases in the criminal justice system. The minister reveals that the lab, which was recently reopened following a probe and subsequent operational overhaul, has recorded some success despite challenges in the progress towards full accreditation.
And now for news further afield. Zimbabwe's President Robert Mugabe has been holding direct talks with the army over his future. Pictures emerged of the 93-year-old meeting the army chief and two envoys from South Africa at his official residence in Harare. More in this report from the BBC.
They are headlines most in Zimbabwe thought they'd never see. The man who'd held the nation in an iron grip for 37 years, swept aside by the military and now in custody. It's a lot to take in.
The step which was taken by the army is quite positive.
We are a bit uncertain about what's going to happen, but we are still very much fine.
I think we have to respect our president because he is too old. We have to give him a safe retirement package and find somewhere to keep him safe.
The military says it is keeping the president safe for now. Armoured vehicles are still patrolling the streets of Harare today. The army very much in charge, but also maintaining calm. President Mugabe has been kept out of sight. To maintain the pretense that this is not a coup, the army needs him to resign and allow a transition of power. Talks are already underway with South African envoys, but some reports suggest he's demanding to serve his full term.
That's it for regional and international news.
Those were our major stories, international and regional news. More news coming your way later on in News Live in 5 with Joel Croskill. But straight ahead, there's still controversy surrounding the national identification system, and it's far from over. We take a look at the legal implications. You have to stick around. That's our panel discussion right after this break with PNP Senator Sylvia Fraser-Binns and Attorney at Law Alexis Robinson. Stay with us.